Hello,
Good morning. How are you?
good.
Are you excited to talk about your project today?
Yes.
Perfect. Do you want to start and tell me a little bit about your project?
Mhm. So this is my Heritage Fair project on Viola Desmond. Actually, can I first share screen my PowerPoint?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. So my Heritage Fair project is on Viola Desmond. My research question is, how did Viola Desmond standing up for her rights help others deal with racism in Canada? Early life. Viola Desmond was born on July 6, 1914. Her mother was Gwendolyn Aaron Davis and her father was James Albert Davis. Her father worked as a stevedore and then later became a barber. It is one of the reasons why Viola Desmond became a beautician. Viola Desmond was raised in a middle class black family, and her family was highly respected in the black community. She had a very large family because she had 9 siblings, excluding her. So there's a picture of Viola Desmond with her sister at a party at the left, and on the right, Viola Desmond in her early 20s. Her career as a businesswoman. Viola Desmond was a businesswoman who worked when white people refused to cut black hair. She opened her salon called V Studio of Beauty Culture in 1937. She enjoyed her job a lot. She was also a mentor to young black women through her Desmond School of Beauty Culture. But before she had the job of working at it as a beautician, she worked at 2 different schools. When she moved to New York, where she passed away, her job was to help singers and actors find a job. Although she had all these jobs throughout her life, she was also a civil rights activist through the Roseland Theater incident. So there's pictures of there on the left. There's a picture of Viola Desmond with her beautician friends, and on the right there's a picture of Viola Desmond in her salon. What happened at the Roseland Theater? So one day Viola Desmond was going to drive 3 towns away to attend a meeting, but on the way her car broke down in New Glasgow, Nova Scotia. So when the mechanic told her it would take a long time to fix her car, she went to Roseland Theater to pass time. There, she went to the ticket booth and she thought she paid for a main floor ticket and sat down to watch the movie on the main floor. But then the usher came and told her to move to the balcony because she was African Canadian, so she wasn't allowed to sit there. But she didn't want to move, so she went to offer to pay the extra money, but they didn't take it, so she sat back down in the same seat. Next, the manager came to her and told her if she didn't move, he would call the police. But Viola Desmond didn't think he could possibly call the police, so she sat there, and the next thing she knew, the police came and dragged her out of the theater, and they put her in jail overnight. The next morning, she was taken to the courtroom, and she was found guilty of not paying 1 cent of tax. She was fined $26, which is now $350. They didn't mention anything about her color, but everyone knew that that was what the case was truly about. So, there's a picture of Roseland Theater from the inside and outside, and the inside is kind of to give you an idea of where she would have sat and where she was supposed to sit on the balcony. How was discrimination like then and now? Discrimination was very harsh in Viola's days because white people were treated a lot better than black people. Usually, black women were expected to be servants in houses, and black men were expected to be servants in trains. During her time, there was also a lot of blacks only and whites only areas. For example, in some public spaces, there were no black people allowed. Usually, those spaces were cleaner and better than the spaces that only black people were allowed to be in. The government also actively discouraged black immigration because the white people protested the growing population of black people. During World War I, the black people signed up to fight on behalf of Canada, but they weren't allowed to fight in white regiments. Before Viola's time, black people were often slaves of the white, and still people today experience racism on a daily basis, and that's why people hold protests such as Black Lives Matter or Stop Asian Hate. When, oh, yeah. What made her so well known? When Viola Desmond got back from the Roseland Theatre, she shared what had happened through her salon, and one of her best friends, Carrie Best, wrote about her in a newspaper. So she went to court again, but this time she had a lawyer and her community's support. But she lost again this time. The judges said it was too long to bring the case to court, and one of the judges hinted that it wasn't about the 1 cent of tax, it was about keeping people of different races separated. So Viola Desmond went back home and she passed away on February 7th, 1965. After that, her story finally came to public with the help of her sister Wanda Robson, who also wrote a book on her called Sister to Courage. On the left, there's a picture of the newspaper that Viola's friend wrote in about her, and on the right, there's a picture of Viola Desmond's grave. What honors and apologies did she receive after her death? Viola Desmond received many apologies after her death. On April 15, 2010, Viola Desmond was granted a free pardon and apology by the Nova Scotia Governor Marion Francis at a ceremony in Halifax. There were many other things, such as the Viola Desmond Chair in Social Justice was established and in 2012, Canada Post issued a postage stamp with her image. She has a heritage minute of her story made for Black History Month. And on November 19, 2018, the $10 banknote was released. The Royal Canadian Mint released a pure silver coin with Viola's portrait engraved on it. And lastly, they named a ferry boat after Viola. The answer to my research question is that Viola Desmond has inspired and influenced many people to stand up for their rights, and they follow in her footsteps by doing so. Her actions helped start the modern civil rights movement. It started on December 1st, 1955, and it allows people of all races to be treated fairly. And I think if we continue to stand up for our rights and create a free and equal environment, maybe there will be less racism and more acts of kindness. This is my bibliography. So for my artifacts, I have the theater. I'm actually gonna stop share screen. I have the theater. It's made out of cardboard and paper.
Very cool.
And then
Did you make that yourself, Mitali?
yeah, and my mom also helped. But since Viola Desmond also, she worked as a beautician, she had her line of beauty products that she sold, and this is like a face powder that she sold. And I also have these tickets that I made to represent the main floor ticket that Viola Desmond wanted to pay for. And for my primary source, I have almost all the pictures in my presentation PowerPoint were primary sources, but I also have a $10 bill that she's on. And if you look here, there's a map of where she lived.
Oh, cool. I'd never noticed that was on there before.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to my presentation.
Okay, that was awesome. Can I ask you some questions now?
Yeah.
So it seems like you spent a lot of time on that model. So I want to start there. Can you tell us a little bit more about the model?
Yeah. This one?
No, your theater model that you made.
So, this kind of represents where she would have sat on the main floor and on the balcony where she was supposed to sit. And this is actually the movie that was playing. I found a clip from it, and it's called Gone with the Wind. It's mainly made of cardboard, and the chairs are made of cardboard and paper.
That's awesome. And you did that from pictures?
Pardon?
Did you do that from pictures of the theater or did you create that yourself?
Um, it like I couldn't really create it like the actual theater, so I did it mainly myself.
That's awesome. That's very creative. I love it. So, how did you choose this topic?
Um, well, first of all, I was kind of interested in how she was on the $10 bill, and before I chose this topic, I also saw the history minute on her story, so that interested me, and also I thought this was more of a powerful topic to talk about.
Okay. I've just got my questions up on the side here. That's why I keep looking over at the side. It seems like you have already really talked about how important she has been to Canadian history. So I'm not going to ask you about that because I think you already answered that one. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your sources? What was your most valuable source that you found?
I think one of my most valuable sources that I found was from the Canadian Encyclopedia websites, but a lot of my other information from my paragraphs came from books, like children's books um, that were written on her story.
Okay. Um, yeah, a lot of these questions you've already answered. Your presentation was great.
Thank you.
What was the most interesting thing you learned through the process, either about your topic or about doing research and presenting it for people?
I think one thing that was really interesting that I learned was how racism was then and now, because then was more separation,
Mhm,
like separate, and now it's more like hate and dislikeness.
mhm. Yeah. So, what do you think we can learn from Viola's story that will help us today?
I think like you I think that if you think about it, no one should have gone through that in the first place, and um, I think I everyone can learn that it's not just about color, that you can just judge someone by their color. It's more about uh their can't like it's more about how they act with you and everything, instead of just looking at, like, you can't judge a book by its cover, basically.
Okay, we've got about 10 seconds left. Is there anything last minute thoughts you want to share?
Um, Not really.
All
No.
right, that was great. Thank you, Mitali. All right, we're going to stop the recording now.